video spawned Sudsy Bubbles here, and today I want to talk to you about Digimon! Digimon on the WonderSwan! Digimon is a multimedia franchise that primarily owes its lineage to the Tamagotchi line of virtual pets. In fact, Digimon was originally conceived as a series of virtual pets and was created by the same people at the same company. Digimon was created by Akihiro Yokoi, Aki Maita, and Takechi Hongo, the original creators of the Tamagotchi, working together under the pseudonym Akiyoshi Hongo for Bandai, which is now Namco Bandai. Bandai gave it the green light because they wanted to capitalize on the explosive popularity of the Tamagotchi line of virtual pets with girls in Japan, so they made a version of the Tamagotchi for boys where instead of raising and playing with your fictional pet, you'd raise a vicious digital beast that would take part in epic battles against monsters other people raised. Nowadays, Digimon is anime, manga, video games, and all sorts of other things, but it all started with the virtual pets, and those looked like this. Anyway, the original Digimon V-Pet line was released in Japan in June 1997. Seeing as Bandai was a toy company first and foremost, these were arguably closer to toys than video games, but they're also undeniably where the franchise got its start. A couple years later, Bandai decided they wanted to compete with Nintendo in the handheld gaming market, so they contacted the man who created the original Game Boy, Gunpei Yokoi, to create what they christened the WonderSwan, their answer to Nintendo's famous gray brick. It was superior to the original Game Boy on a technical level, had a nicer screen, was more lightweight, and it was cheaper. But for whatever reason, the WonderSwan never really came to the States, possibly because there were already a ton of other handhelds to choose from, and Bandai was afraid of crowding the market. A big part of the reason Bandai released the WonderSwan was because they had seen the incredible success of Pocket Monsters, known to us as Pokemon in the West, and they wanted to cash in on the hype with the closest thing they had that could compete. Alright, to be fair, that's simplifying it, but how else can you explain the fact that they released 12 Digimon games on the system? Yes, Digimon was Bandai's baby, and the WonderSwan was their first handheld console, so it was only natural for them to make a boatload of Digimon games for the system that varied wildly in terms of both quality and gameplay. Yeah, you heard me right. That's one big thing that distinguishes these games from their Pocket Monster competition. With a few exceptions, each game played very differently, sometimes to the point of being in a totally different genre. The games were as follows. Digimon version WonderSwan launched on March 25th, 1999, exactly 3 weeks after the WonderSwan itself launched. Digimon Anode Tamer was released on December 16th, 1999, closely followed by Cathode Tamer on January 20th, 2000. Then there was a remake made just over a year and a half later, Digimon Anode/Cathode Tamer Vidramon version, released on September 18th, 2001. Digital Partner was released on May 25th, 2000. Digimon O2 Tag Tamers was released on August 23rd, 2000. Digimon O2 D1 Tamers was released on December 9th, 2000. Digimon Tamers Digimon Medley was released on July 12th, 2001. Battle Spirit Digimon Tamers was released on October 6, 2001. It was also remade for the Game Boy Advance, but I'll cover that in its own video. Digimon Tamers Brave Tamer was released on December 29th, 2001. Digital Monsters card game version WonderSwan Color, yes, that's actually what it's called, was released on March 16th, 2002. Fuck this game. Battle Spirit Digimon Tamers version 1.5 was released on April 27th, 2002, and is basically an updated re-release of Battle Spirit with new characters and new stages and a bunch of other extra features. Digital Monsters D Project was released on August 23, 2002. Battle Spirit Digimon Frontier was released on December 7, 2002, and was the last Digimon game released for the WonderSwan. If you look at all these release dates, you might be thinking to yourself, wow, Bandai was really pumping out these games, weren't they? And you know what? You're right, they really were. This was one of their flagship franchises, and they really wanted it to be their own Pokemon. Which is honestly kind of doing the franchise something of a disservice because beyond surface level comparisons, the two couldn't be more dissimilar, honestly. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, I'd like you to join me as I talk about the entire catalog of Digimon games on the WonderSwan. And what better game to start with than Digimon version WonderSwan?
Data will be deleted, okay? Are you sure this is okay?
Digimon Digital Monsters version WonderSwan, or as the English localization released a year later, shown on screen, would call it Digimon version WonderSwan, was the first Digimon game released on the then new WonderSwan, and it is essentially a compilation of the first 4 Digimon V-Pets. That means you have access to the Bodemon line, the Punimon line, the Poyomon line, and the Uromon line. Now, before I go any deeper into explaining, allow me to clarify that I'm playing this on an emulator. Actual WonderSwan hardware and the games are pretty hard to come by, and as a result, they fetch pretty substantial prices online. On actual hardware, games look like this. Upon booting up the game and hitting a button, you're greeted with 3 options: Reboot, Customize, and Museum. Reboot takes you into the game proper. Customize takes you into the settings menu, which includes a sound test, an option to set the clock speed, and an option to delete your save data. And since this won't be relevant again, I'll mention it here. The Museum is for Digimon that have won 100 or more battles in their lifespan. You can have up to 10 Digimon in the museum, and as far as I can tell, it's only really there for bragging rights. Once you hit Reboot, you'll find yourself in a sort of hub menu. Surprisingly, there's actually a few quality of life features in this game because the system menu allows you to skip a certain number of hours, Mail lets you check any mail your Digimon have sent you, this is used for tracking care mistakes, and Clock lets you determine how fast the in-game clock goes. The lowest setting seems to be real time, so a minute in the game is a real world minute. The game operates under a 24-hour clock, so there's no 12 AM and 12 PM here, it just goes up to 2400 hours. On the right side of the menu, you see Data, Virus, and Vaccine. These are battlegrounds where you can fight Digimon you've raised against computer-controlled opponents. The names themselves are references to Digimon's alignment chart. Vaccine is good alignment, Data is neutral alignment, and Virus is evil alignment. Mind you, this has no real bearing on the gameplay, but I feel it's worth mentioning. Later Digimon games, mostly the PlayStation games, will do stuff with alignment, but here it's just part of the aesthetic. Lab is where you raise up to 8 Digimon, but it's empty now, so we can't go there yet. Net allows you to hook your game up with another WonderSwan either locally or through the internet adapter for the system, as well as hook it up with an original V-Pet with a dongle for that, but since this is an emulator, none of these features work, so I'll just move on from here. Lastly, we have the shop, which is where you can purchase and sell items in Digimon. Yes, you heard me correctly, you can sell Digimon that you've raised for money. Granted, they have to be child stage or higher, but still, you can sell these living digital creatures for profit. You're running a monster mill! At the start of the game, you don't have any money, so all you can purchase is the version 1 V-Pet, the Bodemon line. You can get money by raising Digimon and selling them, or by battling with the in-game battlegrounds. Note that the currency in this game is literally called money, not yen or digidollars or zenny or whatever. The game, in its own words, calls the currency money, so that's what I'm calling it. So after you buy your Digimon, it hatches from its egg, and you go to the screen to name it. Functionally, it doesn't really matter which version of Digimon you choose because they're all essentially identical, just with different coats of paint. Either way, the rest of the items that you can purchase here that aren't Digitamas, the Digimon eggs that Digimon hatch from, are items that enhance your Digimon stats, improve their performance in battle, and prevent them from getting injured. Once you've purchased your Digimon, you'll have email. This is your Digimon's way of communicating to you that it needs something from you. Let's go over the stat screen and what you can do with your Digimon. Name is your Digimon's name. Win is your Digimon's win ratio, how many of the battles it's fought that it's won. Type is the type of Digimon it is. Strength is how much training and or vitamins your Digimon needs. Hunger is how much food your Digimon needs. And power measures how many battles it can take part in before it needs to rest. Age is how old your Digimon is. And weight is your Digimon's weight, measured in gigabytes. It doesn't appear to have an impact on anything, but it is neat to think of your Digimon weighing 99 gigabytes. Yes, the weight is measured in gigabytes, not grams. That's not a mistake on my part. You can have up to 8 Digimon at a time, though I personally don't recommend having more than 5, because catering to the specific demands and needs of 8 fucking animals can get really, really hectic. Inside each Digimon's chamber, you have a list of options that allow you to interact with your virtual pet. The scale here lets you go back to the Digimon selection screen. The food here lets you choose between feeding your Digimon meat or a vitamin. Meat restores hunger hearts, and vitamins restore strength hearts. They also both make your Digimon gain weight, but again, as I said before, this doesn't seem to impact anything. Training is... Funnily enough, while training does restore strength hearts, training is only really useful for determining what adult Digimon your child Digimon will evolve into. Outside of that, there's no reason to ever really do training. Training is essentially a luck-based minigame where you're given 6 chances to hit the enemy Digimon. You press up, down, or right to aim your shot, and if you miss more than 3 times, you lose. If you hit 3 times, you win. And each training session restores a training heart and counts as a training session for the purposes of evolution. And this icon lets you clean up your Digimon. Oh no.
Disgusting!
Well, you won't ever see that in Pokemon now, will ya? This is still a virtual pet after all. The email icon on here takes you back to your Digimon screen and shows you if any Digimon needs something. I don't know why this is here when the scale effectively does the exact same thing. The light option here lets you turn the lights on and off. Each Digimon has a different time that it falls asleep. If you leave the lights on when a Digimon's supposed to be asleep for more than 20 minutes, it counts as a care mistake. The bandage here is for healing your Digimon if they become injured in battle. They won't accept food or train while they're injured, and if you don't heal them, they'll die from their injuries. If they get injured due to old age, well, they're just gonna die, unfortunately. The potion bottle here lets you give your Digimon status-enhancing items. The freezer here puts your Digimon in cryogenic storage, which means they're effectively in suspended animation. You can't use them, but they don't get older, they don't do anything, so you can keep your Digimon in its current state until you want to take it out later. You could potentially put it in there for hours and hours and hours, and then only take it out when you need to. It'll be as if your Digimon not aged at all. And the door here exits back to the hub menu. Each time your Digimon needs something, it'll send you an email. If you ignore this email for more than 20 minutes, that counts as a care mistake. If you get enough care mistakes, like 15 or 16 of them, your Digimon will die. But it takes a lot of gross negligence to do that.
Hey, big guy, how'd it go in there?
I missed.
What does that mean?
I missed.
Oh, hell no.
Oh my god, I'm a terrible parent! Speak to me, Bodamon! Each Digimon has 6 developmental stages. A baby stage, which they're born as, a slightly older and stronger baby stage they evolve into regardless of what you do, a child stage that results in a different Digimon depending on how they are treated as a baby, just like in Tamagotchi, an adult stage where what your Digimon turns into wildly diverges depending on how you took care of it as a child and what child it became, a secret stage called Perfect for adult Digimon that were not only taken exceptional care of, but won many battles. These Digimon are incredibly powerful and pretty hard to obtain. And lastly, there's the ultimate stage for perfect Digimon that ascended their normal limits and went even further beyond. This isn't relevant right now, but you'll see why I mentioned it later. And yes, I'm using the Japanese terminology. Bite me. So now that I've said all this, you're probably asking, what's the plot? What's the point to this game? Not much, really. You just raise your Digimon, try to get whatever Digimon you want, try to keep them alive and healthy for as long as possible, while also trying to go for the elusive perfect stage, and training them to win in the game's various battlefields. Once you've beaten all the battlefields, you effectively win, though in a game like this, I wouldn't really call that winning, more just you exhausting the game's CPU opponents, like beating arcade mode in a fighting game. The real fun here is getting your Digimon to evolve into a specific Digimon. Each Digimon has a different set of requirements for evolution. Funnily enough, to get certain Digimon, you have to do a certain number of care mistakes. Yeah, you heard me right. If you want specific Digimon, you have to abuse them, either just enough to get the monster you want, or way too much. Let's look at some of these requirements, shall we? Seadramon, 4+ care mistakes, train 8 to 31 times, overfeed 4+ times, 0 to 8 sleep disturbances. That means you have to deliberately neglect your Digimon at least 4 times, feed it until it physically can't take any more food 4 times or more. Eat it! Eat it! I made it and you're gonna fucking eat it! And wake it up, well, any number of times. Airdramon, 4+ care mistakes, train 8 to 31 times, overfeed 0 to 3 times, 9+ sleep disturbances. You have to wake this Digimon up while it's sleeping 9 different times.
Wake the fuck up.
Airdramon.
We have a city to burn.
If you treated a human child like this, you'd have defects calling your ass.
Most people don't know what defects is.
Wait, what do you mean most people don't know what defects is?
Not across the United States.
It's not across the United States?
Only in your state.
Only in my state.
Called Child Protective Services. Everyone.
Child Protective Services? What the hell is... Ahem. If you treated a human child like this, you'd have Child Protective Services called on your ass. Aw, man, it just doesn't sound the same. If you treat your Digimon badly enough, it evolves into an Unchi Digimon, which literally means shit Digimon, called such because they fling their poop at the enemy. They only live for like 2 years as opposed to most adult Digimon's 5 or 6, and they're a little bit weaker too. While we're on the topic, it's almost impossible to get perfect level Digimon because the requirements for them are so strict and so rigid that your Digimon will most of the time just end up dying instead of going to the next level. That's right, your Digimon can die, by the way. Actually die. And on that note, I really don't like how this WonderSwan game uses the anime's designs. Look at Metal Greymon's original design. It's so cool. The friggin' sinews and the muscle, the friggin' the machinery attached directly to the friggin' epidermis and the dermis, the muscles, the veins. Look at Raremon. It's so decaying and gross and 90s looking, and the anime, it's so clean. I don't know why you do this. Why would you dial these down? They're so cool. All the Digimon look like this now. They have huge boobies. They kept toning down these Digimon designs and making them sexier and sexier until they look like something a horny cosplayer would fap to. What's wrong with you?
Beneath the skin, we are already one.
So we've talked about the virtual pet stuff. Let's talk about the battle stuff now. Now, I mentioned the Digimon evolutionary stages before, but let's circle around back to them. The earlier Digimon's evolutionary stages, the faster it is in a fight, and the less damage it does. So baby level Digimon are the fastest and the weakest, and ultimate level Digimon are the strongest and the slowest. And this is generally speaking consistent with the rest of the WonderSwan games, with a few exceptions here and there. Anyways, when you enter a battle in this game, you're prompted to make a team using team points. Each Digimon is worth a different number of team points based on its evolutionary stage. Babies are worth 20 team points, children are worth 30 team points, adults are worth 50 team points, perfects are worth 60 team points, and ultimates are worth 80 team points. It's always in your best interest to completely fill up your team points, so try to avoid going under 100 team points. If you go over, you'll have to deselect whatever Digimon is pushing you over the 100 TP limit. When you enter a battle, you'll see your team and the enemy's team. The big bar is your team's health bar. The game calls it burning points, but make no mistake, this is just HP. The percentage is your synchro ratio, which fills up as you do damage and take damage. When the synchro ratio hits 100%, you'll do one of 2 team attacks, a weaker team attack, or a full power team attack called a variable. Which one of these 2 gets chosen is random. Otherwise, your Digimon will do normal melee attacks or more powerful ranged attacks, also chosen at random. Normally, I'd love to say there's some sort of strategy to winning, but to be brutally honest, it's largely based on luck. Primarily because you can't control your Digimon or what attacks they use. The whole thing is done on autopilot until you either win or lose, so you're largely at the mercy of the game and the AI. None of your Digimon use a ranged attack? Too bad, guess you just barely lose. Your Digimon use a team attack but they don't use a full power variable attack? Sucks to be you! You lose! It's frustrating because no matter how much you train your Digimon, no matter how strong they are, you have very little say in whether you win or lose outside of filling the team point limit. There's a few items in the shop that help even the odds, but even then it often feels like the deck is not stacked in your favor, and most of those items only work for one fight anyway, so that's not an effective long-term solution. Anyhow, you go through about 5 or 6 battles in each battlefield until you come across a perfect level Digimon with a couple of flunkies. You beat that, and then you're awarded a Digimon Tamer medal, a check mark on the battlefield you've beaten, and the medal shows up on the title screen. The medal doesn't really do anything beyond that. So once you've beaten Data, Virus, and Vaccine, you get 3 medals, and a new battlefield is unlocked, Crack, which has a mixture of the Digimons from all 3 previous battlefields. And no, that's not this crack, or this crack, it's this crack.
This is epic.
Yeah, the guys who make Digimon love their computer science nerd humor. So you beat Crack, get your 4th Digimon Tamer medal, and the last battlefield opens up, Neo Digimon. Featured here are something I didn't mention until now, the Digimon from the first Pendulum toy, and a line of Digimon exclusive to this game, at least when it was new, called the Infinity Digimon. That's right, if you beat Neo Digimon, you get access to the Pendulum Digitama, the 5th Digimon Tamer medal, and you get access to the Infinity Digitama. And, you know, you've beaten the game. So that's right, there's an entirely new set of creatures with different rules and whatnot hidden behind the game. That is your grand prize for beating all this. And I'm not even going to get into the Pendulum. Let's just say the Pendulum is the only one of the virtual pets here that has access to an ultimate level Digimon. But since I'm using an emulator, the only one of the ultimate level Digimon you can actually access is Heracles Kabuterimon. And that's right, I did say Heracles Kabuterimon. Hercules Kabuterimon is the dub name. Unfortunately, that's all she wrote as far as virtual pets go in this game. There's no VPET version 5 or Pendulum version 1.5 or anything like that. It's really a shame because VPET version 5 has some of my favorite Digimon designs, but oh well. It might just be my imagination too, but it seems the Pendulum Digimon are stronger at each level than the regular VPET Digimon are too, as well as the Infinity Digimon. But that could just be my imagination. Oh my god, ultimate level Digimon are impossible to defeat. It really does just feel like it's up to luck sometimes. To be brutally honest, you can cheese this whole game by getting a team of 5 baby Digimon. Your odds of winning are just as good as if you'd use 2 adult Digimon, so there's not really any point in doing either or. And that's actually how I beat the game, using a team of 5 baby Digimon. It's just dumb luck. Sometimes the enemy's faster than you, sometimes they aren't, even when they're the same level. It's all down to who can get a variable off first, and if you do enough variable attacks and ranged attacks. But after you've done that, you've beaten the game. I gotta say, some of these ultimate level attacks are kind of ridiculous. They fling this baby around like nobody's business. That can't be good for its health. So after you beat the final boss of Neo Digimon, you get the last Digimon Tamer medal, access to the Pendulum Digitama, access to the Infinity Digitama, and you get all the alternate training methods. The Pendulum Digitama is the Pabumon line, and the Infinity Digitama is basically one of the first 4 VPETs chosen at random, except a couple of the Digimon are swapped out for much stronger Infinity Digimon. Oh, the training methods. There's also 3 more versions of training, and instead of being based on luck, they're based on either timing, how fast you can press a button, or timing, again. So that's all. And after you win, the credits roll. And I gotta say, pretty good game. It's one of only 2 Digimon virtual pet games on the WonderSwan. It's a pretty good game, but there's not a whole lot of single-player content outside of raising each Digimon. If you want to play a game like this, I'd recommend one of the Digimon DS games, or Digimon World 1 for the PlayStation 1, if you can find it. As it stands, this is probably a lot more fun if you can play it with another person, but it's a solid first entry for the WonderSwan, and there are many more great games to come. Stay tuned for more next time on Digimon WonderSwan Anthology. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed it, like, comment, and subscribe. If you really enjoyed it, consider supporting me on Patreon, where you'll get to see my videos as soon as a week early. And until then, I'll see you next time. Oh my god, look at all the bodies. So many lives lost. My god. My god. Still not as traumatizing as when your Tamagotchi dies in the Game Boy Tamagotchi game, though. Brr. Aw, yeah, Kabuterimon! Look at him go! He's just a vibing and a grooving! Aw, yeah, it's Kabuterimon! Look at him, he's one badass motherfucker!